Months have passed, runs have been completed multiple times, and now it's finally time to use my experience in order to decide a tier list for the skills of fear and hunger. First of all, a little premise: I will base this tier list on the utility of the skills, but at one point I will mention another parameter for certain skills, okay? And I'm also gonna follow an order. I'm gonna do all the souls, the Endless Soul, the Dominating Soul, the Tormented Soul and the Enlightened Soul, and then we're gonna go on the spells of the gods. So, without further ado, let's start from the Endless Soul, and first of all with Enguard. Enguard allows you, while you're wearing a melee weapon, to actually click shift to start an animation, and if you attack an enemy during this animation, you're gonna start the battle one turn prior, one turn in which the enemy cannot do anything. Or, I mean, mostly anything. There are some enemies like the Crow Mauler who can still do peck at the end of the turn, but it's irrelevant for this. This skill is very useful against most enemies, lets you move faster during the animation, which you can spam by the way, so you can just move faster forever. It's not an S, because majority of the necessary boss fights don't allow you to use Enguard, and because currently Marriage also has a little bug. You can't Enguard as a Marriage unless you are equipping a cursed shortbow, because spaghetti code, I guess. But anyways, it's still a very good A skill. Then we have Lockpicking. Lockpicking is very useful to open some doors, like for example the one that allows you to skip the despawn of the Crow Mauler at the entrance of Mahabre. But it's nothing special because usually the same can be accomplished by just destroying the door or by using small keys or red vials on the doors, or even leg sweep, which is a skill we're gonna talk about later on. Long story short, not essential, but a good quality of life. B tier. Dash, on the other hand, which is accessible by everyone immediately from the start and allows you to go way faster than normal, allowing kiting the enemies, allowing to just go faster and to waste less hunger and mind, and also wasting less torches, very important in Tavern Starvation difficulty or even hard mode. And also in order to make even the most impatient player not annoyed. S tier. And the last Endless Soul skill is Steal. Steal, I have a dedicated video on it for the best steals in the game. Just to give you some example, Book of Enlightenment, which allows you to save, Scroll of Fencing, which allows you to use fast attack, Scroll of Longsword, which allows you to get leg sweep, Soul Stones, the Penance Armor by stealing the Vault Key, possibility of an empty scroll from the Iron Shakespeare. Everything you can get is very good. Not crazily broken, but very good. And that's why it's not an S tier, but it's an A tier. Now it's time to move to the Dominating Soul, and we start off with Counter. Now, there is a problem with Counter. What it does is, basically, it's gonna literally counterattack when you get attacked by a physical attack. You know what's the problem with this? The majority of the attacks of the enemies are not physical, even if you may think that. The attacks are certain hits. And even not considering that, you need to risk getting hit in order to counter. There are some very specific setups where you can get value from it, and in some very specific encounters. But is it so worth it instead of having a more regular plan, which also requires less resources and most normal resources? C tier. Now we have Defense Stance. It gives limb loss protection for some turns and 50% more evasion. But once again, this 50% more evasion is almost useless because this evasion only works on physical attacks, and this is one of the elements involved in the strategy for counter. But in some specific battles it may be used, not more than B, because it becomes obsolete quickly enough, and you will see why very soon. B tier. Now there is the best one of the Dominating Soul, Fast Stance. It gives you an extra turn for the whole battle, and an extra turn isn't a joke, absolutely. It can get you insane value, specifically in longer battles, and makes Defense Stance obsolete, as you can just guard in the normal turn, because if you don't know, guard protects from limb losses, and halves the damage, so it's basically a better defense stance in the long run. A tier. And the last skill is also quite good. It's called Leg Sweep, and what it does is... basically, it should destroy the legs of the majority of the enemies, but the problem is, this skill doesn't exactly do that. Yeah, on some enemies, on the majority of the enemies, it's gonna destroy the legs, but there are some particular cases, for example the Black Witch, in which this skill is gonna destroy the arms, And also, very important,
This skill can destroy immediately all the doors in which you can engage in fight.
so basically all the doors except the Penance Armor door and the big blue doors in Mahabre. And this is basically a better lockpicking, which also does something else. A tier. Now we go to my least favorite soul, the Enlightened Soul. It gives you counter magic. This skill has various usages, we may say. You can use it on ghosts or skeletons to immediately win. In some of these battles, actually, you will win at the end of the turn. You can use it on the doors with the emblem on it, in order to immediately purify them and open them. And also, you can use it on the Yellow Mage to... get attacked by hurting. Yeah, for what I think it's a bug, it makes the Yellow Mage hurting happen immediately, so we're not gonna consider that one. It's only really useful against ghosts and skeletons, but on ghosts it's already useless because you can win by just talking. And also it can open the sigil doors. Purifying Talisman costs only 5 silver coins from the vendor, and there is a guaranteed one from Dark Priests in the entrance. So it does too little and fails at it. C tier. And the other skill from this soul is Greater Blood Magic. It's a decent passive skill, because it's gonna reduce respectively the body cost of Blood Golem and the mind cost of Hurting, and also it's gonna remove the coin flip from Necromancy. It isn't something too incredible, but not even something too useless, so I'm gonna say B tier. And now we arrive to the Tormented Soul. But you may be surprised, the Tormented Soul, all things considered, it's not quite bad. The first skill is Warcry. It's a skill applied on yourself and makes it so that almost all the attacks in the game are gonna target always you, and also removes your evasion completely. It's very great when used from recruited party members, for example Ragnavaldr, not on your main really, but still decent in other cases. But there is a better version that will arrive soon, and that's why this skill is only a B tier. After this we have Devour. A lot of people don't like Devour. Let me explain what does it do. Your main character is able to eat enemies and restore his hunger. A lot of people don't like this because the Devour input is present before the possibility of looting the enemies, and so if you accidentally click on it, then you're gonna eat the enemy and all the loot.
But I mean, what is the difference between doing this and just using the wrong skill in battle?
So this is not a fair criticism in my opinion, and it's just a skill issue. That's why I think the real reason for which this skill is not exactly good, it's because it only removes hunger from your main character, and because food is very present in the dungeon, and later on I'm gonna show you a way to have infinite food, this skill doesn't go over C tier. A decent skill from this skill tree instead is Marksmanship. You know, when you have a bow equipped and you have some iron arrows in your inventory, if you click shift you can shoot them, and each iron arrow is gonna damage a body part of the enemy? Well, Marksmanship makes it so that one iron arrow becomes an insta-kill for some enemies. But the point is, it doesn't work on some difficult enemies, such as the Elite Guards or the Harvestmen, and basically we may consider it a worse Enguard, which also acquire a limited resource, which is the iron arrow.
I mean, limited if you don't have the Pinecone Pig.
But still, Enguard is better in all the ways, and so Marksmanship is a B tier. And then we have Bloodlust. It makes you gain temporarily 50% attack boost, which has a chance to get removed when damaged, and also you cannot control that party member anymore while the skill is active. Do I really need to say something else? It's very difficult to get value from it. Just use a normal strategy, this is too inconsistent. I tried to make it relevant and useful in a Bloodlust only run, but the setup to make it useful is so annoying and boring and not rewarding that I think you may just go with any other strategy in the game. D tier. And that's it for the soul skills. Now we go to the god affinity skills, starting off with Gorogoroth. The first skill we analyze is Blood Golem. This, when used, is gonna deal to you a little bit of damage and then is gonna summon a new party member, Blood Golem, with 200 HP. And also a very good attack, in my opinion. It deals around 300 damage with each hit, and as I say, the more party members, the easier the fight. A 200 HP mid-shield summonable in all battles, with also good damage, is great. A tier. Then we have a damaging spell, which is Pyromancy trick. It does a decent damage around 200, with also a 60% chance of burning the opponent. Not the most consistent way of putting a dot on the opponent, and a better version will come soon, but I gotta be honest, this is not bad. B tier. Now we have something that is very controversial, Hurting. It's gonna always do 350 damage, which can be used in some niche situations. For example, it's gonna always destroy wooden doors, or it's gonna kill the Jack Joe torso, because the Jack Joe torso has precisely 350 HP. But apart from that, without the Greater Blood magic, which reduces the cost of it to 10 mind, Hurting is gonna cost 40 mind. By itself is a C tier. If we consider Greater Hurting on the other hand, I would have put it into B tier. But here I will consider it by itself, because it's my tier list and so I do what I want. The next one is a potential hard mode run saver, which is Necromancy. The more party members the better, and this skill allows you to use it on ghouls or skeletons.
Not counting the Bloody Man, because on it doesn't work.
In order to get them as a party member if you hit correctly the coin flip. Oh, and it also costs 30 mind, but in my opinion it's an insignificant cost considering it's gonna give to you a new party member. Yeah, it's an uncontrollable party member, but skeletons can be equipped with weapons, or ghouls can just be used as meat shield if you want. Because of this, it cannot be lower than A tier. And now, the final, the glorious, the majestic Black Orb. 3 magical attack on the body part selected is enough to one-shot most of the enemies by going for the head, or even, I don't know, White Angel by going for the heart, or even the Black Witch if you want, and it only costs 20 mind. Will never become obsolete with something else, and it's also a good damage. It's gonna deal around 500 or 600 damage overall, and I really think this deserves the spot in the S tier. And that's it for Gorgoroth. Now it's time to go for Sylvian skills. There are only 3 skills, but they are all bangers, except maybe one, but it's debatable. So, first of all, we start off with Pheromones, which is gonna be able to make it so that one party member will always be targeted by almost all the attacks in the game. It basically allows you to have a dedicated tank, which will make all the battles in the game way easier, because just focusing all the damage on one party member, which has all the best defensive gear and can also guard in the necessity, it's fantastic. S tier. Now we have something that may be considered a lifesaver for majority of the runs, which is Loving Whispers. It's one of the best ways to heal, because while, yeah, there are some other guaranteed ways to heal yourself, for example, you can buy from the vendors for 10 silver coins Elixir of Body, but Loving Whispers is one of the most renewable source of healing, also considering there is a way to get Infinite Mind, but we will arrive to that later. So, I'm gonna say A tier. And now we arrive to the debatable one, Healing Whispers. While Loving Whispers is a single target healing that heals around 80 HP, Healing Whispers deal around 30 healing to all the party members you have. But I don't know, in my opinion, most of the times what you want is targeted heal. So I think Healing Whispers may be a little bit useless most of the times. I know there are situations in which being able to heal everyone is good, but I don't think that's enough, and since I'm considering utility, this is gonna get a B tier. Oh boy, now we arrive to my favorite skill in the game. So, from the all mere skills, we have Blood Portal. Do I even need to say anything? This unlocks you fastest travel between the ritual circles, just by praying in one ritual circle, sacrificing the dude on the cross, and by praying on a statue of Olmir, and then, by using one single soulstone you get a skill that allows you to skip the majority of walking in the game. Do I need to say something else?
S tier.
Now, remember when at the start of the video I said I was gonna need another parameter for certain skills? Well, here we are! I have to introduce accessibility, because the next skills are somewhat difficult to obtain, while the previous ones were achievable by everyone, basically. So, God of the Depths. All of her skills require an empty scroll to be obtained, or starting as Enki to get obtained. Good if starting as Enki, otherwise, are they so worth it? Let's go over them. First of all, Mastery over Insects. This is the skill that allows you to go through the Cockroach King quest and actually increase your affinity with the God of the Depths.
Without an empty scroll, it can only be learned by Enki, and you know what's the funny thing? To reach maximum affinity, you need to kill Enki. So Enki cannot do the Cockroach King quest, despite being the only one that can, without empty scroll, get massacre insects.
Also, other than this, you can still get some items from some of the insects on the map by being able to communicate with them, and you're able to pacify completely these scarabs, but it isn't really worth it in my opinion. C tier. Now we have... arguably the worst skill in the game, Needleworm. It does mediocre damage on 2 random enemies. Specifically, it's gonna deal 6 total damage if every attack connects to 2 random enemies, so 12 damage total, and it does lifesteal. That means the damage you do is gonna heal you. But do I need to say why it is not worth it? 12 damage? Really? D tier! Fortunately, the next skills are quite good. The first one is gonna be Locust Swarm, which attacks all the enemies and is able to stun with 100% chance all the body parts that it hits, unless those are immune, of course. It makes some boss fights a joke, and in general is a pretty good spell, but for how convoluted it is to obtain it without an empty scroll, and for the fact that some bosses are immune to stun, doesn't reach A, unfortunately. B tier. And the last one is Black Orb of Wish. It's called the Flock of Crows. Basically, like Black Orb, it's gonna be 3 attacks on a body part, but the damage is way lower, it's around 70 or 80 if I remember correctly, and it has a chance to blind the enemy. But as I precised to you before, only a small amount of attacks of the enemies are physical attacks. That's why this is mostly useful only when used against the Crow Mauler. For the rest, is a worse Black Orb, harder to get. But still, most heads still have a very low amount of HP, and that's why it's not lower than A tier. Alright, we finished the Hexen skills. There is the last branch of skills, which are the non-Hexen skills. Those that can only be obtained by using a scroll, by doing specific things, or...
by the intro of Kahara.
So the first one is Blood Sacrifice. It's obtainable from the Scroll of Dark Mage, reduces temporarily your max HP when used on a ritual circle to gain a random Grogoroth skill. But specifically, you cannot get Pyromancy trick from this for reasons. But in all honesty, Grogoroth spells, and in particular Grogoroth Affinity, is very easy to get, and finding Blood Sacrifice requires RNG.
Go away, save scammers.
C tier. Then we have something that is actually guaranteed, Chains of Torment. After you defeat Chambara, if you go into the present in the Temple of Torment, you can find the Chambara, and he will give you Chains of Torment. It's the only spell in the game able to put bleeding, and it also deals a good amount of damage, if I remember correctly, around 900. It would be A tier if the cost was lower, because it costs 80 mind. So the usage of it is very limited, but still a pretty strong skill in my opinion. B tier. Oh, now we arrive to the best damaging spell, accessible guaranteedly none from the Hexen in my opinion, which is Combustion. It's a 0 mind cost, 400 damage spell with a chance to burn, guaranteed from a scroll obtainable early on, inside of the Nosramus hideout, and because of all these reasons combined, it's another S tier. Then unfortunately there is Demon Seed. This is obtained by combining 3 torn pages that you can find around the dungeon, the last one being in a very far place from the starting position inside of Mahabre, and unfortunately, while yes, it allows you to use corpses to get another party member, which is the Demon Baby, which grows into a Demon Kid in like 4 minutes, which, mind you, can also be traded to Pocket Cat, but unfortunately, considering that you get this spell pretty late on, and also considering that the Demon Kid has multiple bugs in the current version, unfortunately this skill doesn't go over C tier. Now, remember when I said Kahara had an exclusive skill? Yeah, in his intro, you are able to get a skill called Escape Plan, if you escape instead of fighting to the last breath. It's a passive that basically increases the chance of escaping from a fight using the run skill. And unfortunately, because of the fact that only Kahara can get it, this cannot be S tier. A tier. Then since I mentioned it, why don't we evaluate Run as well? Run is pretty good, a chance to run away if you don't want to fight, not S, as most of the times relying too much on RNG is gonna kill you, and also because the majority of the fights cannot be escaped from, specifically the boss fights. A tier. And since you evaluated Run, why don't we talk also about Talk? It gives access to Najra by talking to the Yellow Mage and getting the Eclipse Talisman, it gives access to the Penance Armor by befriending Torture, it wins some fights like the Goal, the Salmon Snake by offering the Gnome Eggs, Valtail by speaking, not S, as its use isn't essential to win. A tier. Now I'm gonna do something, okay? The next one is Phase Step. Everyone knows what Phase Step do. It's obtainable only with an empty scroll, and if you click C, you consume 10 mind to literally not clipping the map by going 5 tiles into the direction you're looking into. But no. This is a mistake. Now, as a sign of protest, I'm gonna give this one a D tier. It's a mistake that shouldn't exist in the game, not even as an option, no, it bugs your game over existence, I don't care. And then the last 2 skills are obtained in the same way, by using map number 1 of Isaiah in this precise spot, and those are Simple Transmutation and Walk on Water. Simple Transmutation is a skill that allows you to consume 15 mind to either turn a water vial into wine vial, or turn a moldy bread into 3 moldy breads. So what does this mean? That if we go into the Salmon Snake Pole, and we completely replenish our glass bottles with water vials, and we slowly convert them into wine vial, while also restoring our mind with the wine vial,
And wine vial heals more than 15 mind.
we get access to infinite mind. And if we combine this with a moldy bread, we also have infinite food. This skill is just too convenient. Never gonna be useless, it's the last S tier. And the Walk on Water, I mean, it's free with Simple Transmutation, it gives access to Combustion by walking over the lake, so I cannot be too mad about this. Let's go with B tier, even if it's not technically a skill, but okay. Also, I should also consider maybe Prey as a skill, or even the Unalive option, but this is my tier list, so we don't consider those. Bye bye!